Hi, it's Courtney again, back with more Halloween recommendations for movies and a couple of things that aren't movies. If you wonder what I mean, I've got my last bunch of DVDs over here that I have that are kind of a little family oriented if you have older kids, because the last thing I'm going to talk about is it's not really like scary horror, but I think it's something that you could watch for Halloween. But like I said, it's mostly for like older kids. But again, it depends how you raise your children, what you feel comfortable with them viewing. But yeah, this is like the last bit of stuff that's kind of like family oriented before I go into straight on, horror films but something that's not really horror and something that I enjoy around Halloween time is Minding the Monsters with Jeff Dunham. For all of you who don't know, Jeff Dunham is a ventriloquist, and my friend Amy, um, her and her husband, and my friend Chris, they all like Jeff Dunham, and they introduced me to him. And ever since I saw Spark of Insanity, I've loved Jeff Dunham. I think he is hilarious and he is very talented, and I love his puppet characters that he's created. Walter and Peanut and Bubba J and Ahmed. I just love all of them. So I have almost I won't say all of them, but almost every special that Jeff Dunham has done because they're always shown on Comedy Central. And when you get the DVDs, because when you watch it on TV, it's going to be edited. But when you buy the DVDs, you have unedited versions where they don't bleep out all the language. So you can watch Jeff Dunham with your kids because they always have the bleep versions and the edited ones on TV. But for Halloween, there is the Minding the Monsters special, where Jeff Dunham and his puppets, Walter and Peanut and Ahmed and Bubba J and Jose Jalapeno on a stick, and Little Jeff, which is a ventriloquist puppet that Peanut has that looks like Jeff Dunham. If you've never seen Jeff Dunham, you should go watch it. But if you have seen him, you know what I'm talking about. And I know some people don't like Jeff Dunham, but I do. I love him. I think he's hilarious. So this is kind of like a Halloween special because his puppets are actually dressed in costumes, and they just go through their show, and I like it. So this is very Halloween oriented, and I think when Christmas comes, I'm going to talk about some of the Christmas movies and Christmas specials that I like that I have on DVD. And he has a Christmas special. We'll get to that one when Christmas comes. But if you like Jeff Dunham, or you've never seen Jeff Dunham, I would recommend Minding the Monsters. So it's not really a movie, but it is Halloween oriented, and I enjoy it. So next up, I'm going to talk about two films by one of my favorite directors, Mel Brooks. And I've got two movies of his that are great for Halloween. I'll just talk about them one at a time. The first is Young Frankenstein, or Frankenstein. But it has the late Gene Wilder in it as Dr. Frankenstein, who inherits a family castle, and he goes there and he finds the monster, the Frankenstein monster, and starts, trying to bring him to life like his ancestors before him. And it has Terry Garr, the late Madeline Kahn, the late Peter Boyle, Cloris Leachman, and Marty Feldman. And it basically makes fun of, the Frankenstein movie from Universal with Boris Karloff. And it's just hilariously funny. There's just so many good quotes from it, you can't go through it. But I guess the most famous one would be the "walk this way" joke. and it appears in a couple of other Mel Brooks films. But my husband actually likes this one too, so it's something that we have in common. We both like this movie. But yeah, and it's it's PG, so there's nothing too bad about it. Um, but yeah, it's hilariously funny. So if you get a chance, try to get Young Frankenstein for Halloween. Oh, it's a good movie to watch. And the next Mel Brooks movie that I have for Halloween is Dracula, Dead and Loving It, which of course makes fun of Dracula. And it has Leslie Nielsen as Count Dracula and Mel Brooks as Dr. Van Helsing. And of course, it just totally makes fun of the Dracula movie from Universal Studios with Bela Lugosi. And so it follows a regular story. Renfield, played by Peter McNichol, goes to Transylvania, meets the Count, gets crazy, and turns into Dracula's servant. They move to Carfax Abbey in England, and we meet Jonathan Harker, played by Steven Weber. We meet Mina Murray, played by Amy Asbeck, and then we meet Lucy Westenra, played by Lysette Anthony, and then of course Dr. Seward. No, it's Seward, I think. Yeah, Seward. So that would make Mina Murray Mina Seward. But anyway, Dr. Seward, played by Harvey Korman, and of course, it's basically the story of Dracula, but it's much funnier than that. There's pratfalls and there's laughs, and I just think it's hilariously funny. I always loved Leslie Nielsen because he is just hilariously funny, and it's kind of weird. He started out as more like a dramatic kind of actor, and then he found his niche in doing stuff like Airplane and Police Squad, Naked Gun, stuff like that. But it's really hilarious. So but it's hilariously funny, and if you really like Dracula and you like the way that it is being so serious and stuff, you might not like it. But if you can stand to laugh at something, I mean, I like tons of movies, and I could even watch reviews of people on YouTube talking about how much they hate this movie, and it's like, well, it's your own opinion, but I think it's hilariously funny. So, if you like Leslie Nielsen, you'll definitely like this movie. It's hilariously funny. So, the next movie, I don't ever hear people talk about this movie a lot, but I've liked it for a long time. I think since it came on TV, I think it first premiered on NBC, because I remember sometimes if movies would come on NBC on Sunday nights or even during school nights, my mom would let me stay up and watch something, but I had to go straight to bed at 11 o'clock when the news came on after the movie went off. So it allowed me to see a lot of great TV movies and a lot of world premiere movies. So this is Death Becomes Her, with Meryl Streep, Bruce Willis, and Goldie Hawn. It also has Isabella Rossellini, Ingrid Bergman's daughter, in it. She looks uncannily like her mom, and she's a very beautiful woman. But it centers around the three characters. Madeline Ashton, which is Meryl Streep, is in the beginning she's kind of an actress trying to go into Broadway, and she's not very good at it, or she's so bad she's good at it. But her and her friend Helen Sharp, played by Goldie Hawn, have always kind of had a rivalry between them, and it mostly centers around the men that Helen finds. And the man that she's with is Ernest Mendel, played by Bruce Willis. And I know everybody thinks of Bruce Willis as Mr. Macho, action, diehard guy, but he's actually really funny when he does comedic stuff. I think this is the first movie where I ever saw him do something comedic that wasn't him, voicing, the characters and look who's talking. So he's actually pretty funny. So Madeline ends up taking Ernest away from Helen, and she goes crazy, insane, and gains a lot of weight, becomes a cat lady, and she wants to get rid of Madeline. And it flashes forward to like present day, because it starts out like in the 70s, and it goes into present day, and Madeline's getting older, so her looks are kind of fading a little bit. Her and Ernest, they sleep in the same bed, but they don't really have relations with each other, and then during the day they don't run into each other. He used to be a plastic surgeon, and now he works as an undertaker. So that's pretty much how his life is going, being married to Madeline. And she tries everything to look younger. She even has a younger lover, and they go to a party that Helen's throwing because she's become an author and written a book. And when they go to the party, Helen looks amazing. She's played by Goldie Hawn, so of course she's going to be gorgeous. But she's lost all this weight, and she just looks amazing. And I guess Madeline starts to get jealous, and then when her younger lover, dumps her for a girl his own age, Madeline goes to see Lisa LaVon Rubin, played by Isabella Rossellini. And when she goes there, she has this potion that she says will stop time in its tracks. Madeline won't get any older. So she gets the potion, she takes it, and she's beautiful again. She's stopped aging and everything. But when she gets home, Helen's come to Ernest while she's been gone and kind of seduced him, and they're going to plot to kill Madeline so they can be together. And what happens is Ernest accidentally ends up killing Madeline, pushing her down the stairs. But in a wacky twist, because she took this potion, it doesn't kill her. But basically she's undead. So she's kind of like a zombie. And then Helen gets involved in the story, and it just goes off the rails from there. But I like it. It's kind of got a dark tone to it. So kind of like black comedy a little bit, but there are funny moments, and I like it. It's I think it's one of the only movies I have with Meryl Streep in it, because I really like how she's known for being such a dramatic actress, but she's actually very funny and comedic. So I like this movie. I think it's really good. It has kind of a weird ending to it, but it's kind of funny. But it's it's mostly talking about how nobody wants to get older. Nobody wants to have to die and age, and it kind of drives home that point towards the end of the film. But so that's Death Becomes Her. I don't hear a lot of people talk about this movie, and they should. It's a good movie. Next up is another Tim Burton movie. I like Tim Burton. He's another one of my favorite directors. And some people are kind of like hit and miss about some of the films that Tim Burton does nowadays. Mostly because he's done kind of like, remakes a little bit of classic things. So one of those that he has done that I have is Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp. It's based on a nighttime soap opera from the 70s. And it was about the Collins family, and they're a family filled with curses on them that involves ghosts and witches and vampires and werewolves, and Um, so the main character, of course, is Barnabas Collins, who is turned into a vampire by a curse by the witch Angelique, here played by Eva Green, and she was in love with him. He kind of used her and spurned her, so she kills his fiance Josette, and then curses him to be a vampire, and then locks him up in a coffin, and takes over the town of Collinsport, and you know you know runs it for like the next 200 years, because this is again kind of set in the 70s. So so Barnabas wakes up, and he goes, to Collinwood, the family manor, and he finds Elizabeth, the matriarch of the clan, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and she lets him stay, but tries to keep it secret that he's a vampire. And there's Roger Collins, played by Johnny Lee Miller, and his son David. And David's mother recently passed away, and he talks to her ghost. So they have a doctor, Dr. Julia Hoffman, played by Helena Bonham Carter, kind of trying to help him get over his mother's death. And let's see, trying to think. Chloe Grace Moretz plays Caroline, Elizabeth's daughter, and she's like a sullen 70s teenager. So basically, just a normal teenager, except in the 70s. Trying to go through some of this. Bella Heathcote plays Victoria Winters, real name Maggie Evans, and she's the reincarnation of Josette, Barnabas' fiance. So Barnabas is trying to woo her and keep the fact that he's a vampire secret. And of course, Angelique is now running Collinsport, and she's trying to seduce Barnabas, again like before. And so Barnabas has to deal with Angelique and falling in love with Victoria, and trying to bring notoriety back to the Collins family. And of course it has music by Danny Elfman. There's a cameo by Christopher Lee. There are cameos by some of the actors from the original Dark Shadows. I have seen some of the episodes of the original Dark Shadows. They used to play them on Sci-Fi a lot, and so it's like a very dark, moody kind of tone, where it takes place in the 70s, but they always had flashbacks to 1600s, and so it was kind of gloomy and supernatural and dramatic. This kind of isn't. There's a little bit of drama in it, but it's not as atmospheric as the original Dark Shadows. I think Johnny Depp does an okay role as Barnabas Collins, as kind of like a fish out of water, because the original Barnabas Collins, played by Jonathan Freed, was aristocratic and kind of maudlin, and Johnny Depp's really not that in this movie, but I think he does okay. As you can tell, kind of how the DVD looks, the colorization, the hues and saturation are, they're very dim, and some aspects are kind of, bright, kind of, psychedelic, because it's in the early 70s, maybe late 70s, but it does have a little bit of atmosphere, but not as much as the original show did. And I think in the early 90s they tried to revamp Dark Shadows again for a more modern audience, but I don't think it took very well. But so if you're a fan of the original Dark Shadows, you might not like this movie. I'd recommend probably seeing this before you try to see the show, because then you'll definitely see the difference. But if you watch the show and then watch this movie, you might not like it as much. And of course, it's PG 13, I believe. Yeah, it's sexual content, some drug use, and language, and comic horror violence. I just love how they give it a rating for that. Comic horror violence. I don't know. So there might be some parts that might be a little scary for young kids, but that's why it's like PG-13. So again, it's up to your discretion. But they play it on Freeform, which used to be ABC Family a lot, and I guess they kind of edited a few things out for TV anyway. So, but I like it. It's kind of comical and it's kind of fun. So I'd give it a viewing at least maybe once. Oh, okay. I've got two more to talk about, and I'm gonna save the best for last. But this next movie, I know there's a lot of like hate for it, but that's because what came after it was so much more popular and embraced by people. But this is from 1992, and it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. Okay, I am a huge Buffy fan. You've seen through some of my books that I've shown. I love Buffy. When it came on TV in 1997, I was in middle school, in 8th grade, about ready to start high school the following fall. And ever since it came on TV, I've loved Buffy. But I did see this before the TV series came out, and I like it, which is why I checked out the TV show. And I was surprised that it was much darker in tone, because this case here, they kind of re-released it on DVD, because the original one was a lot brighter and showed the more like kind of comedic aspect of the movie. But so this kind of capitalized on the show being a lot darker. But the Buffy movie was written by Joss Whedon. It kind of got taken out of his hands a little bit, and they decided to make it more kind of like a teen comedy kind of movie. I mean, because it was called Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I guess, it was like, oh, that's kind of funny. A girl named Buffy slaying vampires. So, because the original tone was supposed to be much darker, and they made it a little campier, and I think Joss Whedon ended up just walking off the set one day and was like, here you go. You can do whatever you want with it. And then in the future, he decided he was going to try to get his more darker, serious tone released, and hence we got the TV show. And but the movie stars Christy Swanson as Buffy. She's a stereotypical California Valley girl. She has vapid, shallow friends. She is vapid and shallow. Her boyfriend is vapid and shallow, and she meets this older guy named Merrick, played by Donald Sutherland, and he tells Buffy that she is destined to be a vampire slayer. Of course, Buffy doesn't believe it until she's taken to the graveyard and sees a vampire come up out of the grave, and she's the chosen one, chosen to kill vampires. So Merrick tells her that, she has to try to keep it a secret, because if the vampires know who she is, then they can, come after her and her family and everything. So Buffy has to, balance her life between her old, shallow, vapid California early 90s existence into being, a killer of vampires and trying to save the world from evil. And there's a vampire king named Lothos, played by Rutger Hauer, and over the centuries, Buffy, I guess Buffy's past lives were past Slayers, and so for centuries he's been killing Slayers that look exactly like Christy Swanson, and he's ready to come after her again. And he has a vampire servant named Amelin, and he's played by Paul Rubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, and he's almost unrecognizable with like grungy hair and like a goatee, but he's really funny, so that's where a lot of comedic aspects come in to play. But there are serious tones, especially about growing up and moving away from your friends and trying to be a responsible adult. And a lot of things happen to Buffy where she has to kind of grow up and mature and be different. And along the way, she meets Pike, played by Luke Perry, who was big with Beverly Hills 90210 around the time. And he's kind of like a scruffy, grungy guy, very different from Buffy's basketball player boyfriend, and they end up forming a bond when vampires start roaming around and killing people. And so yeah, it is kind of cheesy. You wouldn't get that from some of the images on the back, that this movie could be kind of serious, but it is. And it's just, I think it's hilarious and funny, and not to take it too seriously. And it is a total 180 from the Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV series. And but it's funny. It's also got a really great soundtrack, a lot of good 90s stuff, and I like it. So if you like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I would check out this movie. Like I said, it's totally different from the show. I mean, the show still had like its subtle bits of snarkiness and comedy, but this is pure 90s cheese, and I love it. But it's good for Halloween. Trust me, I love it. And I'm running along again, as I always am, because I like talking about these movies. So the last one I'm going to talk about, everything that I've talked about is kind of like PG-13. This one is rated R, but it's not really a horror movie. I kind of see it more as like an homage to those like really bad B movies of like the 1950s. So kind of more like kind of science fiction, if you will. That's kind of a cheesy segue into this, but of course I'm talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And I saw this movie when I was about, I want to say 12, maybe 13 years old. And I love it. It was something different and something kind of weird to watch, but it has Tim Curry in it, so I will give anything with Tim Curry at least a chance, because I love Tim Curry. I think he's a magnificent actor. I mean, he's done theater, and he can sing, and he can dance, and he's just a charismatic, handsome guy. And of course, in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, he plays Dr. Frankenfurter, and he goes around wearing fishnets and heels. Gotta admit, if a guy can walk around in heels and fishnet stockings and look better than you do as a woman, you've kind of got a little bit of problems there. But that goes to show you how kind of, sexy he is. So I had to get that kind of out of the way. But if you've never seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show, it is something different. Like I said, it's kind of almost like an homage, like science fiction horror B movies of the 1950s, but is set in the 70s. Um, it follows Brad Majors, played by Barry Bostwick, and Janet Weiss, played by Susan Sarandon, as like a young, clean-cut, all-American couple who are on their way to visit Dr. Scott, who they met in his class in high school, and that's how they kind of fell in love with each other. And their tire blows out, and they end up stopping at this creepy mansion and are met at the door by Riffraff, played by Richard O'Brien, and he's kind of built like Igor, but he has like long blonde hair, and the top of his head is bald, and he's kind of got like the black circles underneath his eyes, and he lets them come in, and they're having a convention, a Transylvanian convention, to celebrate the newest endeavor and creation of Dr. Frankenfurter, played by Tim Curry. And so Brad and Janet get roped into this weird atmosphere, and men wearing heels and dressing up like women, and it's out of their comfort zone, and but it kind of entices them a little bit because it's strange and different. And Dr. Frankenfurter's creation is Rocky, a very muscular bodybuilder man that Frank has created for himself. And Brad and Janet end up having to stay in the castle overnight, and a lot of weird, strange things happen. It's very hard to describe Rocky Horror. You kind of have to watch it for yourself to see what happens, but it's a musical, so there are lots of musical numbers, and but it's something that you can't explain. It's an experience that you have to watch, and because when it first came out, a lot of people didn't like it, and then they started doing like midnight showings of it, and people would participate in it. They'd get up on stage and dance to the songs and dress like characters and just do all sorts of wacky things. And I kind of wish that I could experience it the way that everybody else who's seen this has, going there and participating. Like, it's something that, everybody, once they see this movie and they love it, they kind of want to embrace it. And, of course, they did, like, the TV version of it. I have to admit, I did not watch it, because I kind of don't want to watch it, because I like this version so much. And I just don't want to, I'm not that good with change, or, remaking something that I like. And sometimes if a remake will come out, I will give it a chance. But Rocky Horror, nothing compares to this version. So it is rated R. So yeah, there's nudity and like sexual situations, and it's not something your kids can watch. But if you're over 18 and you want to give it a try, I highly recommend it, because you'll either be one of those people where you'll hate it or you'll love it. And if you love it, you're gonna love it forever. But that's just me. So that doesn't conclude my Halloween recommendations. It does conclude all the ones that are more appropriate for families, and some things that are not. But when I come back, it's going to be straight up horror until we reach the night before Halloween. So, because this is stuff that I'm recommending for you to watch on Halloween. So, until next time, have a good day, and when I come back, we're going to just be immersed in horror films of all different types of genres. So, see you next time.